my experience of it was fantastic, partly because it's all new, and I guess I had a fantasy as to what working in a creative organization might be like. An ad agency is one example, and my first years in advertising and my first days in advertising proved that to be true.
I think that everyone arrives at an agency, especially their first agency, very anxious to prove themselves. You're sitting amongst a whole bunch of people who obviously have much more experience than you, and you know, I think that agency life is really, especially as a creative person, and I am a creative person, but I think also as a suit or a strategist, it's about the work that you've got under your belt, you know, experiences that you've had, because some pretty crazy shit happens.
I have an honours BA degree from Oxford in English language and literature, so my mind was full of kind of scholastic crap, and I had to get that out of my head, stop being an intellectual and be a person that wrote from the heart, from the gut, to touch people's emotions, not so much their heads.
I studied fine art, then I studied graphic design, and then graphic design was what prepared me for the most part for this kind of environment.
I think it was pretty intimidating starting at Ogilvy because it's such a large kind of company, but I had a few friends here, so that helped. And then otherwise I just kind of tried to introduce myself to as many people as possible, because no one is going to introduce themselves to you.
Incredibly exciting, very nerve-wracking. I think probably it's an eternal fear in advertising, is that one day you're going to wake up and someone's going to find out you're an imposter, and you shouldn't really be here, and all those great things that people think you've done, you didn't really do.
You know, I was teamed up with a senior art director and writer, and I basically worked for them. So, you know, I kind of learned my way around the agency pretty quickly, primarily, you know, through them. The agency wasn't as big as Ogilvy is now, and I think then, you know, things were obviously a lot less complicated.
But I also remember a lot of terrifying stuff. Clients screaming at me, asking me to remove myself from their business. One client who to this day remains a good friend screamed at me on the phone, "I want all fucking juniors off my business, including you." Keep focusing powerfully on what's in front of you. The job becomes manageable and you don't get overwhelmed, and I often fail doing that and do get overwhelmed or anxious, but every now and again I get that right.
Try not to confuse a client for a girlfriend. Doesn't work out incredibly well and can be slightly embarrassing.
I think creatively, just to not be afraid to say something stupid. I think especially in kind of an art director, copywriter kind of partnership, you really have to just be willing to, even if it's not a fully thought out kind of idea, just put it out there and see what it sparks.
The one thing is preparing people on the art of presenting.
Learn as much as you can. Just because you finish school or education or whatever it is, wherever you come from, doesn't mean that you should stop trying to learn things. So learn as much as you can and be open-minded. I think, you know, it's quite a cool quote from a chap called Ivan Toffler, who's a futurist, and he was saying the illiterates of the 21st century will not be those that can't read or write, it'll be those who fail to be able to learn, unlearn and relearn. So particularly in advertising, where things are shifting and changing very quickly, you need to be able to adapt with the times. And whether you're a creative or a suit or a strategist, it doesn't matter. You need to be constantly knowing how the status quo has changed.
Trust the people you work with. In the early days, I just felt I didn't entrust the business, a business that had been around for over 30 years incredibly successfully before me.
Staying calm and not necessarily reacting when things take a turn for the worst, because generally there's always a solve. And I think that people who find a way around the day-to-day issues and problems in our industry in sensible ways are the people that make it.
If you don't ask, you don't get, so be sure to kind of be very upfront and not be afraid to ask for things, whether that's kind of, you know, an art director or a raise or a, you know, whatever. It's like you have to kind of put yourself out there.
I think when advertising you need to be very confident with yourself and very happy with yourself. It can be quite a thankless industry. You're working with a lot of egos, and we have no other industry I think has so many big extravagant awards to reward ourselves for being wonderful. I think you kind of probably need those, because the day-to-day extremities that you go to, or extremes that you go to try and make amazing things is unreal. Like the sacrifices you make are incredible, and you rarely get thanked for it.
The biggest challenge is probably kind of interpersonal relationships in an agency, especially kind of one of this size. So you're not always going to get along with everyone, and sometimes that lands you in hot water.
A lot of people get told very early on in their careers that they're very talented, they're very promising, and I think that there comes with that a sense of expectancy that you just won't get anything for free in this industry. You really have to work hard for it.
The best advertising comes from the gut. It is not intellectual, and I had to learn that the hard way.
If you have an idea and you think that you can do it yourself, don't waste lots of time trying to go and ask for lots of permission. Just try and do it. And if you fail, then fine. The worst thing is you failed, unless it's like mission critical, obviously, then like ask for permission. But try and constantly try and experiment with new things, even if it's for your own brand or a side project or whatever. See whether they work. If they work, brilliant, you'll grow from it. If they fail, also brilliant, you'll still grow from it, because you know that now that doesn't work, so you can try something else.
Lists. Whenever I work off a list, it sounds really silly. When I work off a to-do list or an agenda written down, I think it's important it's written down, I'm more productive. And the truth is, most days I don't, and I'm messy. And then there are days when I sit down and create a task list, and it works very powerfully for me.
Try do the best work you can on every brief you get. You know, I think there's a lot of emphasis often placed on proactive work, and while that is important, I think doing good work for the briefs that land on your desk is kind of first prize.
I've found that the things that I've worked hardest on have been the best things that I've done. Nothing really comes particularly easy, and it would have been nice if someone had told me that in the beginning. I always had this idea that you would have this eureka moment and then gold coins would pour out of the ceiling, and that it doesn't happen that way. It's a long incremental process in getting a great piece of work out, and quite often, because you've been so close to it, you never know how good it is until other people look at it and tell you.
It's useless being in advertising unless you love your job. You've really got to look forward to Mondays, even if you've been at the agency the whole weekend. You've got to think, yes, I'm going to have a nice time, I'm going to have fun. The man described advertising as the most fun you can have with your clothes on, and I think that is how you would thrive in advertising. You wouldn't just survive, but you'd thrive because you're having fun.